Information Literacy 101, Speeding Towards Transfer Student Success. The goals of this event were to increase instructional faculty and library collaboration, help instructional faculty embed information literacy into their curriculum, and facilitate discussions amongst disciplined faculty across campuses on information literacy, academic expectations, and more. Our keynote speaker was Danny Cook, Director of Teaching and Learning at the UC Riverside Library. She leads the development and implementation of library teaching and learning services and initiatives to support the curricular and research activities of UC Riverside faculty and students. She also recently co-authored the book Learner-Centered Pedagogy, Principles and Practice.
So I thought I'd start out today by talking about this overarching framework that we're going to be working with the rest of the day. Information literacy, because I think it's always helpful to have a shared understanding of what that means before we dive into this work. Even if you talk to librarians and they're sort of steeped in this literature, you're going to get a different definition for pretty much everyone you talk to. And I thought I would just share a quick story. This past weekend I was talking with my best friend who teaches at UCLA, and we were talking about this presentation, and she said, "Danny, I know this is what you do, and you talk about this information literacy thing all the time, but what the heck is it?" So I gave her essentially the short version of what I'm about to tell you, and at the end she was like, "Oh, I do that with my students. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I never thought about it as either a discrete concept or something that has a name. So I definitely don't have any preconceived notions that anyone is necessarily thinking the same thing that I'm thinking at this point, but by the end I hope you will be, and that you'll recognize it in your own work as well." So any collaboration is going to go nowhere real fast if we're not aimed at the same thing, right? If we don't have a mutual understanding of what the other person is looking for. So having that conversation early and frankly is a critical starting point for doing any kind of collaborative work with the library and faculty. So, for example, I've worked with a ton of classes where the request is, I'd like to bring my students in to learn about the library, right? So it's challenging as a place to start from, because there's a lot of things in the library. I've got 50 minutes to work with students. I'm not necessarily sure about their context, why do they need to learn the library stuff? How will I pick from the wide variety of library stuff? And that can sometimes be a frustrating point, but I think actually those questions open the door to having meaningful conversations about what the goals are for working with the librarian and what the goals of a particular research assignment might be. And if nothing else, I think we always have the shared goal of we want our students to learn something and do well, right? We may have specific goals for a specific class, or we may have our own sort of favorite thing to talk about, but I think that's why we're here, that's why we're educators, and if we both start there, then I think we can have a really productive conversation. So all of which is to say, I think especially with these different kinds of skills, we're talking about evaluating information, the changing information landscape, holistic understanding of information literacy across your institution from when students come in to when they graduate or leave the institution for whatever reason. Librarians are set up to have that big picture because of the way that we work. So we work with students from their freshman to their senior year and then in graduate levels as well. But of course, again, faculty have the disciplinary information to make any of that meaningful. So each of us working on our own, I don't think we'll get the whole picture for students necessarily. But together, we can and we do amazing things.
Following our keynote speaker was a panel discussion featuring instructional faculty from each institution who have successfully collaborated with their library. The day ended with breakout sessions where instructional faculty and librarians discussed information literacy, transfer student needs, and different ways to work together to support student success. This event got the conversation started between instructional faculty and librarians. Some ideas to keep moving forward were doing more outreach to faculty to increase awareness of the library and foster more collaboration, developing a zero-unit information literacy course, and developing information literacy Canvas modules. In the next academic year, the group plans to develop information literacy modules for Canvas that can be shared across institutions. The content will be focused on topics and tasks that are applicable across disciplines and academic libraries, as well as being applicable to students throughout their educational experience. These modules will help make the integration of information literacy into courses simple and seamless for both teaching faculty and students.